Teachers, what's the weirdest thing you've ever had to take away from a student? It was December or January and we were having one of those lockdowns where the police come in with dogs to sniff for drugs. We were all locked in our classrooms and no students were allowed out, even to visit the restroom. One of my students was white as a ghost, very afraid. I asked him what is the matter, but it was obvious he was afraid he was about to get busted. He said, "Do you think the dogs will go to my locker?" I said, "I do not know. Do you have something to be worried about?" He said, "There is a ham and cheese sandwich in there." I scratched my head a bit. "I'm sure it is no problem to have a sandwich." He said, "Yeah, but it has been in there since September." That reminds me of this kid who spilled weeks old coffee that he had in his locker. Our class was in the same hall and dear god did it smell terrible. 3/4 of class time was spent brainstorming ways to save ourselves from the smell. No amount of Axe helped. I am picturing a class of 12, 13-year-olds sitting in a circle brainstorming. First one, "We can spray Axe. Doesn't he help?" Second one, "I have some Axe." 2, "Eyelines try. Doesn't he help?" All the way around the circle. Narrator, "No amount of Axe helped." Eyeballs. I worked with a blind student with autism. When he would get angry, he would pop out his glass eyeballs and throw them across the room. They were expensive, so mom asked that we put them in a plastic bag in his backpack if he threw them. "No more eyeballs for you today." My grandpa had a glass eye. He would rub it and exclaim, "I think I have got something in my eye." Pop it out and say, "Can you check for me?" while thrusting it toward you. I cannot believe he did not press the glass eye against you and say, "I have got my eye on you." Not a teacher, but was part of almost eliminating the prize box in my kid's class. Kid is in kindergarten. I'm friends with a few of the other fathers in her class. One of the things her class has is a prize box. If the kids are all on their game for the week, or a kid does something especially good, they get to choose something from the box. It's filled with the kind of stuff you would find in a blister pack in the dollar store. Stuff like a little plastic car, or a bouncy ball, or whatever. Anyway, the kids love it. The parents supply stuff for it. So one day my kid comes home with a ducking kazoo from the thing. Nothing like a 6-year-old who just figured out how a kazoo works while you are trying to work from home. So immediately I fire off an email to the list of my fellow dads asking, what wussies put kazoos in the prize box? And then see that 2 other people had beat me to the question. One of the guys finally replies back, "Head," and it was on. I countered with whistles. Someone else had this annoying popping thing. Someone else got the world's worst balsa planes. So like, the second time it flew it was destined to snap in half and upset your kid. This went on for like a good 2 weeks before someone crossed the line and sent in glitter. By this point the teacher was onto us and told our wives on us. This is officially my favorite story here. An entire menagerie of live insects. One afternoon my class decided that they should see how many bugs they could capture and keep alive in my classroom. The next day, I returned from covering lunch duty in another part of the school and noticed that one of the cupboards had paper towel taped over the front like a curtain. Before I could investigate, I noticed several Tupperware containers hiding in desks. Dozens of worms, that was the cubby. Many assorted beetles. Uncounted ants. 4 bees. A wasp. And, most upsetting, several flies which were crazy glued to index cards and had their wings removed. That was a long day in a long year. How the duck did they safely catch a wasp? Was it loose in the room? It was a rural country school. There is always at least 2 kids in every country school that have magic animal soothing powers. I see. I'm from a rural town. I'm quite the chicken whisperer. I will let the hens catch a wasp. Instant pudding. My student was mixing it in a large Cool Whip container, using milk from lunch, right in the middle of a lesson on Macbeth. They were making their own witch's brew. Double, toil and gastrointestinal trouble. This is my brother's story, and he was the kid. It was a sandwich bag full of spiders. He collected them during recess, and one of the monitors probably got freaked out. My brain omitted the bag when I read it the first time. I have never been more curious about lobotomies until now. Nom nom crunchy sandwich. A whole salami. kid kept walking over to his backpack and sticking his face in to take secret bites without me noticing. I noticed. This one is the funniest to me because it is just such a kid thing to do. Kid thing. I'm in college and I would totally do this. I turn 28 next month and I hide food in my office Acura paint booth so that I can go sneak bites real quick when no one's looking. Like no one cares if I eat at work, but I think they're going to judge me for being the psycho that eats peanut butter in the booth. But like if you get one of those quick latch respirators, you can just pop it down real quick to get a huge as big as possible spoonful of peanut butter, then pop your mask back up and spend the next few coats of paint working on getting all that peanut butter unstuck from the roof of your mouth. There was a boy in my 7th grade class that wasn't allowed to have coins because he'd eat them. First thing that came to mind, a drawing of a peanut. One kid said he had a peanut allergy, so a boy drew a peanut on a piece of paper and started shoving it in the other boy's face and being a general dick with it. Boom. Roasted. Dry roasted. With salt. Christmas ornaments. They were throwing them at each other and it eventually caused a fight. Next to that would be a curtain rod. He found it and kept hitting people with it. Handcuffs. From an 8-year-old girl. Not quite police grade, but more than just some adult fun cuffs. Sent that down to the counselor. We had a 5th grade student of a police officer cuff his friend to the play structure on the playground a few years back. Had to call the campus cop over to figure it out. Poor lad, didn't he look any worse for wear. Just had to chill alone outside for a bit while his friends got back to class. Read it as he was out there for a few years and was very concerned how nobody cared. Has just chillin'. A wine cooler that looked like a Capri Sun. This was a 2nd grader and she was just getting ready to drink it. Meanwhile mom is just sneak sipping on a Capri Sun at work when reality hits her. I saw a tweet like 2 years ago saying someone's dad was drinking a White Claw every day on his way into work because he thought it was another seltzer brand like LaCroix. Growing up I used to think Mike's Hard Lemonade was a really badass lemonade. My sister's teacher had to call my dad about a suspicious powder my sister was eating out of a bag at school. She was dipping her finger in a bag of powdered jello and eating it and letting other kids do the same. In a somewhat similar vein, a dumb trend went around my school that consisted of kids violently snorting dab powder sherbet then proceeding to scream in pain when they had a nosebleed and or pretend they were high. This was an all-girls school. Do not ever let the boys call girls boring memes fool you. We also do dumb shit. I remember in high school watching a guy snort a line of the sour powder from a sour gummy worms bag. Man did he scream his head off as it stung pretty bad. Dude I knew from high school snorted a bunch of crushed up flaming hot Cheetos. I have never laughed so hard in my life. In the end he could not tell if his nose was bleeding. It was just snot mixed with Cheetos. Or both. Chef's knife stuffed in the waistband of his sweet pants no underwear during a snowstorm. In case he was attacked by a polar bear. I do not recall exactly, but that very well might have been it. Seriously. Alaska. A small trinket box about palm sized. Decorated with gems and glitter. With a live mouse inside. The mouse was named Jimmy and had been caught in the child's house. Free my man Jimmy. He did not do nothing wrong. A girl had about 50 plastic spoons in her pocket. She tripped and they all fell out. We all found it hilarious, but a high up teacher was walking by and made her pick them up. She was going to anyway and put them all in the bin. She was probably very confused over the whole situation. Why would she even have them laughing my freaking butt off, and that many too? Not to be a downer, but maybe her family couldn't afford to buy utensils and stuff, so she was trying to take them home. A giant head of lettuce that just suddenly appeared on his desk. Where did he get it? Are you sure it was not a cabbage? Because I might know where he got it from. My cabbages. I have been on Reddit for many years and have never noticed people hollering my cabbages everywhere up until 8 months ago when my friend made me watch Atla. Now I see it everywhere, and if I do not see it, I post it. Another student's tooth that he had fished out of the trash can that he was going to add to his tooth collection. This seems like the plot of a Criminal Minds episode. Obligatory, not a teacher. I'm an EA educational assistant in a school. Plastic spoons. Hundreds of them. I still do not know why. But one grade 5 kid came to school with his backpack stuffed full. Nothing else was in his backpack. Not even his lunch. He hung it on the back of the chair and pulled out a spoon and was fiddling around with it instead of doing work. So I took the spoon away. 10 minutes later he has another one. I took that. 10 more minutes a third. The teacher took it away. 10 minutes later another. You can see the pattern here. I finally opened his backpack when I saw him grab the 6th or 7th spoon. And the bag was full. Obviously the teacher had to call home since he had no lunch. Mom comes, looks at him with just resignation, and goes, "Why?" as she hands him his lunch. He shrugged, grinned, and walked back to class. Mom is clearly used to it and has learned to go with the flow. If I had a nickel for every time a worrying amount of plastic spoons was confiscated from a 5th grader in this post, I would have 2 nickels, which is not a lot. It is just weird that it happened twice. Just don't give that one kid the nickels as he eats them. Would that be better or worse than the 2 uncooked, boneless chicken breasts? Former teacher here was not part of the initial apprehension, but was part of the follow-up investigation. Weirdest thing was a bag of turtles. Yep. Kid caught a bunch of the little salmonella-filled red ear sliders at a local pond on his way to school one day. We had a turtle black market at the school by noon, and by the end of the day the principal had a dozen in a bowl in his office. Kid got caught because a terrible smell was reported from his locker. Janitor opened it up and there was a bag of turtles. The rest of the day was spent tracking down the ones that had already been sold. Edit: I have owned a few reptiles as pets. To my knowledge, small under 4 inches red ear sliders have been illegal in the pet trade for quite some time due to a risk of salmonella in their skin. All turtles that were brought to school were under 4 inches. Principal released turtles to pond that evening. Middle school kid was 7th grader. The best business venture we had at the school was when a different kid who walked to school would stop and buy 10-15 Monster Energy drinks from a convenience store in the morning and sell them at school. Kid banked. The operation was eventually shut down. Wish I knew what Hat Kid was doing now. The way this is written definitely makes it sound like the principal had bought turtles from this black market. You're in big trouble, young man. Unless you cut me in. Not a teacher, but a friend of a teacher. A letter to his other friend about how he once masturbated in class. They are extremely awkward now. Yup, incredibly strange that kids use letters these days. Texts would make much more sense. Letters can be burned, or in my case, eaten. I have eaten several notes when the teacher asked for them. They were like, hand it over, and I just shoved it in my mouth and started chewing. A flavored condom. From a kindergartner. This little boy comes into music class at 1:00 PM or so, and he has been at school since 9:00 and says to me, "Look, I have a candy," and holds up a wrapped strawberry flavored condom, trying to cause a scene. I tell him, "Remember, we're not going to eat in music class because it's hard to sing with candy in our mouths." I pointed out the pocket on his jean jacket with a snap button closure and tell him to put it in there, making a mental note to tell teacher later. I always try to avoid losing control of a room of 25, 6-year-olds. Kid puts condom in his pocket, and I start music class. Later on, I see him putting something in his mouth. Put that back in your pocket for after school or something to that effect. Pretty sure food is scarce at home, to taking it away would have been a huge scene. Teacher comes at the end of the half-hour lesson and I discreetly tell her what's going on. And she says she lines handle it. Great. After school, the middle-aged male school counselor comes up to me and says, "Thanks to you, I've been walking around in elementary school all afternoon with a flavored condom in my pocket." Sorry, not sorry. Edit: the wrapper had pictures of strawberries on it. Also, I don't know how many of you have ever tried to take candy from a 5-year-old, but it doesn't go well. Especially if you take candy from a kid who doesn't have a lot of food at home and then put it in the garbage in front of him. It would have been a massive scene and the other 20 kids would have gone wild. I chose to keep the problem as controlled as possible. Why would he keep it in his pocket, lol? Because it is less weird than putting it on. Less likely to be caught with it on though. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe for more videos.